recollection and not recreating the events of 1988. We don't expect any punches to be thrown tonight. However, it's turning stone, and you never know what could happen. I was hoping for a laugh. Fans, the moment has arrived. Let's welcome to Turning Stone, Boxing Hall of Famers, former heavyweight champions of the world, kings of the ring, from Catskill, New York, Iron Mike Tyson, and from Pennsylvania, the Eastern Assassin, Larry Holmes. Tonight's conversation, a sports journalist who covered both of these legends in some of their most legendary fights. He was there for Holmes Ali in 1980. He was there for Tyson Spinks in 1988. And who among us can forget his coverage of the 1984 Empire State Games in Syracuse, featuring a young Mike Tyson. Please welcome longtime sports columnist for the Syracuse Post-Standard and Syracuse.com, Mr. Bud Poliquin. All right, folks, remember, later in the program, we will have an opportunity for you, the audience, to ask some questions. So be thinking about what's that one thing you've always wanted to ask one of our two champions here. We'll let you know when we get to that portion of the program. And now, without further ado, let's turn things over to the guys.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm quite flattered to have been chosen to be the moderator and sit up here with these two fellas. I've done some pretty interesting things in my career, and this is going to be right up there at the top of the list. So I do appreciate the folks at Turning Stone for asking me, and I know the folks at the Syracuse Media Group, the Post-Standard, Syracuse.com, are only too happy to have me here representing them. So this is going to be terrific, and I appreciate being here. I should let you know, to let you fellas know that you're not the only fighters on the stage. I used to fight in Chicago, and Tony Zale, former middleweight champion, once refereed one of my fights. How about that? So how about that? The man of steel, you're right. Anyway, we're sitting up here, folks, these two guys together, just to bring it a little up to speed, in case you're a little sketchy on who we're talking about here. Together they were 119 and 12, combined record, 119 and 12. 88 knockouts. 44, magic number in Syracuse. 44 title bouts these guys fought in combined. One of them, Larry Holmes, began 48 and 0. The other one, Mike Tyson, began 37 and 0. So the career combined start to their careers 85 and 0. Rather remarkable. They fought the best there was. They fought Ali and Lewis and Evander Holyfield, Norton, Shavers, Weavers, the Spinks brothers, Jerry Cooney, Trevor Burke, James Bone Crusher Smith, Carl Williams, Tony Tuck, Carol Biggs, Frank Bruno, Rachel Ruddock. It goes on and on and on. These guys stepped in with the greatest fighters that there were in the game at that time. Larry Holmes, as we all know, had the great left jab. Maybe the greatest left jab the game has ever seen. Still has to count. Larry had the misfortune of having to follow Muhammad Ali, and people said he was like Jack Nicklaus trying to follow Arnold Palmer. He was like Lyndon Johnson trying to follow Jack Kennedy. Somebody once said that if he was a baseball player, he would have been Henry Aaron. And I think that's about what we've got on the stage. As for Iron Mike Tyson, one of the heaviest, toughest punchers in the world we've ever seen, baddest man on the planet. He once fought a guy named Eddie Richardson. You remember Eddie Richardson? 77 seconds in Houston, Texas. Knocked him out. And after the fight, I asked Eddie Richardson, have you ever been hit that hard before? And he said, yeah, let me think. Oh yeah, last year I got hit by a truck. That's how hard this guy is. Anyway, they met. You guys met in the ring once before. We talked backstage a little bit. And I'd like to do, I'm sure these folks would like to stroll down memory lane. Larry, we'll start with you. You fought this gentleman. It lasted 4 rounds. Unfortunately, he put you down 3 times in the 4th round. What are your memories of that fight with Mike Tyson back in 1988?
Well, what I remember is that Don came knocking on my door about like 9 o'clock at night. I had retired for 2 years and I was out with my band singing. And there's a knock comes on my door, bang, bang, bang. Don King, I said, come on in, man, what's up? He said, I want you to fight. I said, man, I'm retired, Don, for 2 years, you know that? He said, yeah, but I got to fight, man, for you, man. And I know you can beat this guy. I said, Don, I ain't gonna fight. I'm not gonna fight at all. I said, who you want me to fight anyway? He said, Mike Tyson. Oh, shit. Mike Tyson, yeah, Mike Tyson. I said, Don, I can't beat Mike Tyson. I've been off 2 years. He said, yeah, but I'm gonna give you time to get in shape and everything. And you can whoop Mike Tyson. I know I can't beat Mike Tyson. But he said, but I'm gonna give you $3.5 million. I said, okay, where's Mike at? And the rest of the history stopped in the 4th round, you know. And I had no animosity against Mike Tyson. I'm just glad he didn't hurt me. You know, he knocked me down a couple of times, but guess what? I didn't feel it. Because the first time he hit me, he hit me so hard, I couldn't feel it. Like I got numb.
Well, Mike, what do you recall?
But Mike said to me, I got to tell you this interest. Mike told me after the fight, he said, Larry, he said, I love you, man. I said, yeah, why you kick my ass? Mike is a great guy, ladies and gentlemen. He's a great guy.
What do you remember, Mike, of that fight?
I just remember having a great opportunity to be in the ring with one of the greatest fighters of all time, and that was just, you know, that's a milestone in my career. You know, when you look at the situation, he's been off 2.5 years. He's pretty much robbed of his title. He probably pretty much gave up boxing, gave up the daughter fighting. He didn't have time to prepare properly, and that's just one of the, I don't know if it's a downstroke, one of the milestones of being a great champion. When you're older and you're not at your peak, they always want you to fight the young up-and-coming guy. And it happened to me, and that's just what happens in the game of boxing. They make room for the new guy in order to make his star as bright as they can be. Sure. You have to fight the old champion and stuff. I never thought that I fought the great Larry Holmes of his prime or anything. I never had no big, I wasn't never delusional about that. I had no great grandiosity that I fought the legendary Larry Holmes in his prime. I know it by all means I didn't. And I used to appreciate it.
Okay. Mike was 21 at the time, and Larry was 38. So there's kind of a difference in age. Now, Larry, you had fought Ali when Ali was the aging icon, and you were the in his prime champion. And then the roles reversed, and you became the aging guy, and you fight this fella who was getting into his prime. When you were fighting Ali, you didn't want to hit him.
But, you know, one of the things about Ali and I, you know, Ali was 38 and I was 30. And I worked with him 4 years as a sparring partner, so I knew everything he could do. And I knew that he could beat me. Not only that I knew it, Ali knew that he couldn't beat me. But it was a money thing, and man, listen, I don't blame him. Like I said with Mike Tyson and Don King offered me $3.5 million with Mike Tyson. They offered Muhammad Ali $10 million with Larry Holmes. And that's what it was all about. It was about money.
But see, you had a hard time hitting your idol. I'm going to ask you, did you have a hard time hitting this guy?
I just, I find this objective, you know what I mean? If it was my mother, I would hit her. Nothing personal.
So when you didn't feel, again, on that night, that you were the young, you know, almost the invincible guy at that point, and he was the aging guy, you didn't have any mercy on him?
No, because if I had mercy on him, he might have kicked my ass. Listen, you know, after I fought him, he fought Holyfield, he fought Oliver McCall, you know, he fought quite a few of the top guys, and he almost beat him, and some guys thought he won those fights, you know what I mean? So he didn't have enough time to prepare for the fight before me. That's just the real, you know, he's being humble about the situation. He just didn't have enough. He should have fought twice or 3 times or something before the fight. But, you know, of course, you know, Don didn't get an opportunity to get warmed up and get prepared. And just as he had a few fights after he fought me, he fought fought Holyfield and he fought Tommy, what's the Ray Mercer, vicious puncher. You know, those he really handled those guys pretty simple.
Sure.
And you know what? I'm glad that Mike Tyson fought me that day, beat me that day. Because if he didn't beat me that